Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
In April, I made a decision to end this war. As part of that decision, we set the date of August 31st for American troops to withdraw. The assumption was that more than 300,000 Afghan national security forces that we had trained over the past 2 decades and equipped would be a strong adversary in their civil wars with the Taliban. That assumption that the Afghan government would be able to hold on for a period of time beyond military drawdown turned out not to be accurate. But I still instructed our national security team to prepare for every eventuality, even that one. And that's what we did.
Chad Benson Show, Greg Collins filling in. That's what they prepared for. They prepared for that inevitable eventuality, that there would be no real military protection whatsoever because the Afghan government would fold so fast. There is an AP report that on July 23rd, Biden called the then president of Afghanistan, Ghani, to talk about some of these things, to talk about what was going on as far as the Taliban quickly regaining control of a majority of the country. And Biden told that president, who then fled the country on August 15th, less than a month after this phone call, to lie. This is a Reuters report. This is a leaked phone call. The transcript is out there. That is the only way to describe what occurred. That I'm not even trying to be political about that analysis. He told him to lie. Biden said that there was a perception that the Taliban was winning that fight back in July, and that they needed to change the perception. They needed a forceful news briefing, some sort of a big show of success or of stability for the Afghanistan government, the Afghan government that existed at the time. And they didn't do that as best as I can recollect. And if they did, it obviously didn't work. And then that president, the person you're telling to tell the people everything's fine, we're holding, we're strong, ran away. I don't know how moving forward you can believe a person, our current president, who told another country's leader to lie to their people during a war that we were actually still involved in. I don't know how you can trust it. I know that politicians lie all the time and can't be trusted, but that is about the most egregious of sins within that political world as could possibly exist. To say, hey, we have a perception problem here. A lot of people are seeing the reality of situations, that the Taliban is in more control than we want them to be in as we are drawing down, as we're leaving. Can you go ahead and do something about that so that public perception changes and we get to leave the country better than if it goes the way it did? That's actually what occurred. I will jump around to a bunch of audio from the other day. I just think it's tremendously interesting. The White House Chief of Staff said a few things that I thought I could challenge fairly easily. One is that Biden did a good job.
It's easy to second guess, but let's just be clear. America was in this war for 20 years, and I think any effort to unwind that, any effort to bring our troops out, any effort to end our military presence in Afghanistan was going to be filled with heartbreaking scenes and difficulties. And I think the Biden administration has managed that as well as it could be managed under the circumstances we were placed in.
Circumstances we were placed in. That's it should be a bingo of some kind. Blame Trump is going to be on there all the time. I also want to play this. It was the part of that conversation. Mahdi Hassan actually asked him one of the bolder questions I've heard someone ask the White House Chief of Staff, and the answer was terrible.
Did you really have no clue at the time, no intel then, about how quickly the Taliban would take back power?
Well, I will say that in July, the Taliban had not yet conquered a single provincial capital in the country. As General Milley has said, I don't think there was anyone who thought they would go from having taken no provincial capitals to marching into Kabul in 11 days in August. We certainly knew there were threats and dangers of the Taliban on the march. Indeed, when Joe Biden became president, the Taliban had taken or was...
Okay, these are all contradictions. The Taliban didn't have any provincial capital. The Taliban was also incredibly strong when Biden took office back in January. So they didn't have the control that they got in July. This is around the time of the phone call, again, that I mentioned, July 23rd, when a 14-minute conversation turns into lie to your people, please. The President of the United States is asking you pretty please to do that to the Afghan people. And I do want to go back to Biden's comments, the comments we played to open the show, and play the end part of them too, because I believe he contradicts himself within this statement that he made the other day.
In April, I made a decision to end this war. As part of that decision, we set the date of August 31st for American troops to withdraw.
We all know that part. Keep going, sir.
The assumption was that more than 300,000 Afghan national security forces that we had trained over the past 2 decades and equipped would be a strong adversary in their civil wars with the Taliban.
Now, in light of the fact that we know you made a phone call on the 23rd saying that even if the Taliban was winning the fight, you gotta lie, I don't know if I believe that.
That assumption that the Afghan government would be able to hold on for a period of time beyond military drawdown turned out not to be accurate.
Correct.
But I still instructed our national security team to prepare for every eventuality.
Okay, so he prepared for every eventuality, and as he says,
even that one.
All right, so we were prepared for this. We knew what to do. The terrible, chaotic scene that we saw was the only possible scene, I guess, according to a president who said just a moment ago in this speech that they expected the Afghan forces to hold.
And that's what we did. So we were ready. And the
You didn't look
Afghan
ready.
security forces, after 2 decades of fighting for their country and losing thousands of their own, did not hold on as long as anyone expected.
Now, wait a minute. It's that last thing that I like the most.
Did not hold on as long as anyone expected.
You prepared for this, but they didn't hold on as long as anyone suspected. And what happened was chaos, mass chaos. I don't know how you can prepare for something and then say no one expected it within the same 15 seconds of a conversation. If I was sitting there for just that part and you got to have a conversation back with the person doing this, and of course, Biden takes no questions anywhere, so you're never able to have the conversation back, I would have just said what? I would have done the pregnant pause version of an interview that George Stephanopoulos gave Biden a little while back and just said, huh? Can you repeat that again? Can you say you planned for everything and then you planned for nothing at the same time? I want to play one other piece of audio on this and we will move on. There are other topics shockingly in the news than what happened in Afghanistan. But one of the people that has been very vocal about it, a lot of Republicans spoke in the last 24 hours about this. Representative Mike Gallagher, though, really summed up the failure pretty succinctly.
Let's start with the hard and obvious truth. The President of the United States is lying. He called this an extraordinary success, but 12 Marines and 1 sailor dead that did not need to die is not a success. Hundreds of Americans left behind. Thousands more of our Afghan allies effectively condemned to death under the Taliban is not a success. Billions of dollars worth of U.S. military equipment left in the hands of fundamentalist terrorists is not a success.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it better than that. Those things are all certainly not a success and certainly worrisome if we planned to do these things. That's the problem here, is if you take the president at his word that we had planned for this inevitability, that this was one of the things we expected, then how we executed it looks worse. It doesn't look better to say out loud, we knew this could happen because you didn't display that in what occurred. If you just intended to leave all of the weapons and not destroy the weapons so that they could be gained by our enemy of the last 20 years, if you did that intentionally, that's worse. It's like a child getting caught by a parent that did something bad and actually admitting that they had a plan going in. You don't get any more forgiveness. What you get is something very different. All right, we're going to take a break. A lot more coming up, including I want to talk about Don Lemon and the crazy thing he said, which I guess could be the topic of any segment, but the crazy thing he said about those who are unvaccinated and get sick with COVID-19, that's coming up after this. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Serving up talk radio medium rare and dripping with irony. It's Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. Look, I hate this comparison. I'm just going to say that before I even play the Don Lemon audio. Anybody that says that the unvaccinated are kind of like a drunk driver, any of those comparisons are flawed in so many ways. And it's not what Don Lemon said, but it's something I'm actually going to say in response to his audio that I'm going to play in a second. But I just want to preface all of us with this. I want everyone to be in the same tree with me, that is a flawed comparison in a bunch of different ways, except if you try to make this argument. Here's Don Lemon.
Sorry, I ate into the time.
Okay, actually, and Chris Cuomo, too. Apparently, Chris Cuomo had an interview go a little long, had to apologize on air for some reason to Lemon, and then Lemon had his tirade.
Sorry, I ate into the time there, but I had...
No, it's very important. You don't have to explain. You don't have to tell me. Listen, here's how I feel about that. If you're not going to get vaccinated, you don't want to social distance, you don't want to wear a mask, then maybe you don't want to go to the hospital when you get sick. I know that sounds harsh, but you're taking up the space for people who are doing things the right way. You and I both agree on this is going to be between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated moving forward in this country. And I just think if you don't want to play by any of those rules and then all of a sudden you end up in the hospital, I feel bad that but maybe you shouldn't go and take up the resources from someone else.
All right. Here's why that argument is nuts. And I will say this before I say it, too. This actually is my last preface to the point I want to make, is I feel bad for healthcare professionals who are inundated with cases in parts of this country. I feel bad for them. My heart goes out, whatever you want to say, whatever cliche you want to use, but I mean it. It's authentic and real. That must be a tremendously challenging job right now. My wife was watching TikTok videos, and one of the viral ones was a nurse who was essentially crying into the camera, saying how hard her job is, and she just wants to stop and give up. I couldn't fathom having to treat cases of COVID-19 and then feeling as though there's more cases of COVID-19 because people aren't choosing to get a vaccine. And I know that some data proves that out to be true. Some data is still emerging on that. But I will say that I feel for the healthcare professionals. Of course, you still go to try to get treated, to try to have your life saved. And here's the example I set up. A drunk driver who gets in a car accident and injures themselves gets rushed to the hospital and they try to save his life. A drug addict, a person who, can't get clean. And I know that there's programs and things that try to help you. And I know there's all kinds of challenges there. But a person who can't get clean still gets treated if they wind up overdosing. We in this country, in this society, because of what we have capable or available to us as a society in general, the fact that we're not, of course, a third world country, allows for those to be treated medically for things they did to themselves. If you shoot yourself by accident in your leg, essentially you did something dumb, something stupid, and I don't know how that would happen, how it would occur. I guess there's all kinds of ways. But even in that analogy, say you did it completely, in a dumb way, you still get treated at the hospital. They don't look at you and go, you made a mistake. You don't get health care now. And so, again, I feel tremendously bad for healthcare professionals, and I understand the sentiment that involves some sort of emotion that says, this is just unfair. Or in the case of the stories that they're telling on some of these outlets, these news outlets, where people can't get treated because of other people in the hospital that are being treated for COVID-19, I feel tremendously bad again there. I know that a whole bunch of funding, government funding, was sent to different states, all the states. I know we have no qualms right now with the people in power to write more blank checks as well. So I would say do everything we can to enhance those situations. Pull another boat up in front of any of the cities that need medical assistance before you say don't go. The take that someone who is in a life or death medical emergency, whether it's their fault or not, which is essentially what I'm trying to say in my examples, and that you don't deserve medical treatment is hatred. That's what that comes off as to me. That doesn't come off as any form of the America that I know and understand, and any form of the way in which we as a society care for each other. It just makes no sense. Just die was essentially the message from Don Lemon on CNN, and I don't comprehend and will never comprehend that conversation. All right, I want to shift gears again to Adam Schiff. I didn't do that on purpose. Adam Schiff is trying to defend the idea that the government deserves phone records from another member of the government, from Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy obviously thinks this is inappropriate. Schiff is saying that it doesn't matter. What happened on January 6th means we get everything. And I do think this is nuts, too, that you're trying to go around or go through or figure out a way to invade the privacy of another member of your own political world. And you're doing this for political reasons. This is not for the reasons Schiff will claim they're for.
And I think that at the end of the day, we're determined that whoever was involved in this effort to prevent the peaceful transfer of power should not be able to hide behind their office. We want to develop all the facts. If people were not involved in trying to overturn the government, they shouldn't be concerned. But Kevin McCarthy clearly is, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is his boss, his master in Mar-a-Lago.
I will say this. You're already seeing the impeachment calls for Biden and all of his staff. You actually even saw yesterday some Republicans call for Nancy Pelosi to be ousted. I think this is a reaction to all the impeachment attempts that were made by the last when the last administration was in charge, and the fact you did impeach Trump twice. Now you got these invasion of privacy things going on as far as phone records go. This is just going to go back and forth. Politics is going to be even more mess than it already is if we just keep going down this rabbit hole, this road of we'll say this out there for whatever reason. I'm not totally taking away from some of the calls to investigate at least how Afghanistan occurred. I'm not saying that doesn't deserve an investigation, but the immediate calls for impeachment feel a little premature at least. And obviously they feel similar to what occurred when Trump was the president just a little while ago. And now if you do this, I think we're just going to have back every phone record of every politician is going to be out there. Everybody's going to get impeached a few times. It'll all become meaningless. It's like a troll on social media eventually, right? Like you do stop listening. If someone comes after you a bunch of times on Twitter, eventually you're like, I don't care about this opinion anymore. And we're doing this to our political world right now. We're going to impeach everyone. It'll be a badge of honor. If you get impeached at some point in the near future, I feel like you'll be like, yeah, I was another one. Maybe it'll be unique to not get impeached at some point, to not be technically removed from some power. I'm not sure. And again, investigation first still makes sense to me, but we're way, way ahead or way, way behind in that part of the process with some of the things we're saying in public. I got to take a break in just a bit. I will talk about a nightclub in Glasgow that wants to solve the energy crisis by utilizing the power of the people that party at that nightclub. Revelers might have energy. That story and a lot more coming up. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. Much deserved vacation for sure for Chad. Facebook had to apologize for removing a mother of a slain Marine, removing her Instagram account. This woman, her name is Shanna, is the mother of 20-year-old Marine Lance Corporal Kareem Naku. He died fighting for our country and trying to save lives in Afghanistan in that attack. And she, the mother, got very mad on Instagram and Facebook at Joe Biden. Anyone in her situation, I don't care about your politics, would be mad about that and be mad at that person. Anyone. And I guess at some point, even though the statement later by Facebook, which owns both of those platforms, Facebook and Instagram, said that nothing she did actually broke any of their policies, and they apologized for removing her account. It was incorrectly deleted. Even though they said that, somebody did it. Somebody saw, and the mother actually went so far as to say, and I think she said this on Facebook, well, her Instagram account was non-existent. Well, it was gone. She said that she was likely to get deleted there as well. But she said the reason that she thinks that she was canned so quickly from the platform, within a day or so, within hours, I guess I should say, of posting some of these negative things after losing her son, a Marine, is that people were responding to it too much. It was anti-Joe Biden comments and ideas, and she was gaining a lot of popularity, a lot of following very quickly. And so delete that. That shows to me a tremendous amount of political bias in the world of social media, in the world of censorship and Silicon Valley, that they would not only remove or review some of these things, but just full on delete an account that was all of a sudden surging in popularity without any understanding of who or what it is. And again, if we're just being human beings, if you're not being political, if you dislike or like the things she was saying about the political people she was commenting on, about the president, it's irrelevant. That mother just lost her kid, and she was mad about it on social media, a place where everybody goes for whatever reason to vent about things. She had every right to say what she did, as the company eventually acknowledged. But they full-on deleted her account. It's just stupid to say that, at the very least. Disrespectful, upsetting, a lot of things. I will move on, but I just wanted to relay that story relatively quickly. I want to talk about the Mike Richards firing, or the Mike Richards firing number 2. The redo, the revisit, the redux. Mike Richards was going to be the host of Jeopardy. He was the executive producer, I should say now too, of that show and of other shows. He got canned from the hosting role because a lot of people found some podcasts he had done, podcasts that he himself described back in 2014 as an attempt to be irreverent and funny. He said that he missed the mark on those things with some of the things he said, but his intention was to be irreverent. I will tell you that out of context, some of the things that you can read or listen to that he said do seem like they're weird things for the guy that's trying to be the Jeopardy host to say. But if you were going for irreverent in the world of podcasting in 2014, you were not going as far as others were going. There were a lot of people in that medium at that time who were blowing the door away, if not the whole wall away, that was politically correct things. And this guy said words like boobies at one point. He didn't go as, and I don't know if that's a defense for him or not. I don't really care about that part. But what I'm saying is that when he put this content out there in the world, we had very different standards of what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. And he was not pushing the envelope anywhere near as much as a whole lot of people who might never also host Jeopardy. I doubt LeVar Burton did anything like this, though. And I did like him better. I will say that, too, as far as appropriate hosts. LeVar Burton still makes more sense to me. So I hope that there's a good shot of that becoming a thing at some point down the road. But I just think the Mike Richards thing is so intriguing, and the way the fight occurred so intriguing. I was talking to producer Phil before the show today about that, and how quickly people can find this stuff now, how quickly they can locate it. Mike Richards is announced as likely to be the Jeopardy host, and if somebody found it before that, when he was rumored to be the host, they sat on it. The moment that he becomes announced, they publish it, it gets out there. How difficult is the job of being the internet person who snoops on everything you've ever done in your career to make sure you're appropriate for whatever it is the job is? And then there's also this article in Fast Company, fastcompany.com. It's written by a guy named Joe. Joe says that the internet was united around the idea that Mike Richards was bad, that he was a jerk, that he's a terrible guy, and deserved to not get his job. And within the article I read, he mentions the fact that the internet was obsessed with this story because, in his opinion, they thought they could win. The Twitter trolls, whoever they are, thought they could take down this guy, this white guy, because he wasn't a celebrity yet. He wasn't. I'm paraphrasing now, but this is the assumption I get. He's not as powerful as other people out there. What he did might not be anywhere near as bad as some of the other people that the internet and others go after. But what he did didn't matter. All that matters is that the internet could get him. And so they obsessed on it. They went after him. And a bunch of people have celebrated it, including former Jeopardy contestants and some of the most famous of Jeopardy contestants. James Holzhauser is one of those who said, "Ding dong, the witch is dead," as one of the things he put up on social media. I don't know who Mike Richards was as a person behind the scenes on the television show, beyond anything he's being accused of being as far as anti-Semitic or a sexist or any of the things that he's accused of being. Maybe he was just an executive producer that had some more common Hollywood things. Maybe he wasn't the nicest of people. I don't know what it is, but apparently contestants hated him, or at least one high-profile contestant hated him. Maybe someone else who probably wanted to be considered more for the job, too. That might be professional jealousy. I don't know what it is. But this story is just so intriguing to me. It's just so profoundly interesting that social media would go after someone they think they can get more so than someone that they think deserves it more. Because even then, even within that sort of take that I found on the internet from just one individual, so I guess it was one of the people tweeting about it, whatever, take it with the grain of salt you want, is that maybe they start to congregate the Twitter users on those that they feel are weaker. It's like going after a puppy with a leg, a limp. That's what it feels like to me in this situation. Is he's not famous yet. Let's get him now. Let's get him for the things we found that he did in 2014 when he was trying to be irreverent and funny and not doing a good job of any of that, really. Because as I said, you could have pushed the boundary at that time in 2014 more. Now it's something that will get you certainly unpersoned as it did to him. It's just the most intriguing of stories in the way in which it's handled. All right, I want to get to this story too. Very interested. There's a climate conference that'll be going on in Glasgow. Because of that, one of the nightclubs there, one of the legendary ones there, SWG3, has come up with a new system to help create energy. They say that it's the body heat system. They have a lot of people who party at their nightclub. The revelers show up. They show up in force. And so they use heat pumps and fluids. That feels weird to say. Hold on. They use heat pumps and fluids to capture the incredible amount of body heat generated at this nightclub. They channel that combined energy into 1,250 meter deep boreholes drilled beneath the venue, and that actually then somehow powers things moving forward. The whole reason I wanted to mention this story, we talk sometimes about climate change and solutions to things. If the nightclub people can get this done, that'll be the most entertaining solution to me moving forward. If I have some politician somewhere in the next few years say what they did there was incredible, and we're looking to do that more here. We're spending countless government dollars to put the body heat system into play in any popular nightclub here in the United States, and the energy we will gain from it is incredible. I will say, though, and it's been a little while since I've been a clubber, that if you go out to a night, I probably was never a clubber, actually. When you go out to a nightclub, it does get unbearably hot. That is a thing that does occur. And so if that is energy that can be utilized in some way, I'm just tremendously entertained by the concept of that. One other story, and then I'm going to take a break for a bit. A person in Vancouver at a Dairy Queen got very upset when they were being asked to put a mask on. So upset, in fact, that what they decided to do was urinate all over the place. That's what occurred. The person went into the store, the guy did, asked to wear a mask while ordering in Dairy Queen. This is in Canada, which I figured they'd just be nicer about this stuff. I don't know why. I know that that's a stereotype, but I just thought they would be. And when he was told to put a mask on and he didn't want to listen, his protest was tremendously unique. I wonder if this is pre-planned. I don't know if a guy, is downing a bunch of soda and or water or something and going into the Dairy Queen. He's like, if they ask me to wear a mask, I am definitely ready to protest in my own way. I don't know. Or if this is just the spur of the moment, halfway through the argument thing you think of. And that's a terrible, terrible thing to think of as a version of protest. Obviously, cops are interested. Obviously, crimes committed. I don't think they found the guy yet. But there's video footage that's circulating and out there. I'm tremendously intrigued for whatever reason, maybe an odd reason, as to how the planning and execution of that protest came about. What chicken and the egg? What was first? Did you go in knowing you were going to do this? Or did you go in not sure at all and you just so happened to need to go that bad? I don't know. We'll probably never know the answer to that. This is Craig Collins filling in. A lot more Chad Benson Show coming up.
Check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Because television is now on a bunch of different platforms, like actual television, kind of sort of celebrities are involved in these things or known people. We're doing a lot of ideas. Ideas are pretty much accepted. I imagine if you're trying to workshop a concept for anything, reality show or otherwise, you just go down the list of all the platforms and somebody says yes. I'm not criticizing because I think it'll be bad. I'm just not sure a lot of people would have approved this when we only had 4 networks. There's a brand new show coming out called X-Rated. The show is actually hosted by Andy Cohen and by a relationship expert, Shan Boodram is her name, I believe. It's not anything salacious in that regard. It might sound like it is. It's a concept that allows you to be reviewed by an ex you dated live on television. And the idea, according to the relationship expert, is that you're going to be biased. You're going to write all these things off. But in order to grow, you need to actually get someone like that into your orbit, into your world, who has experience dealing with you, obviously pretty profound experience, to give you some of those criticisms that might hit home a different way. This is essentially what I heard her say during an interview. I don't know any human being that should want to be on this show. I can't think of anybody. I mean, I know the occasional person who is still friends with an ex, which always surprises me for a lot of reasons, because I feel like somebody's not done with that relationship. Whoever it is, there's got to be somebody that's not done, in my opinion. But if that's not it, if that's not the situation going on, if it is something else, then my opinion is always going to be that, this person's going to be overly harsh in a way that's not beneficial at all. And yet that is the concept. That's the belief. It is must-watch reality television. I will say that part of it, I guess, is that if your ex and you were to have a conversation of any kind in a public space, I think that I'll at least be a little bit intrigued by it. But it's just hilarious to me, again, that this is even a show at all. All right, moving on. Other stories in the news that are of interest to me. This is essentially me doing some topics for me, and then I'll get back to the news of the day in a bit, I promise, to make sure that you get what you need out of this. But there is a dolphin that apparently has been attacking people in the UK for quite some time. The dolphin is well known in the area. It may even have a nickname because it's doing the same thing. First, it popped up in Ireland. Now it's been across most of the UK. And they found a TV expert. Again, I guess there's a theme to this segment. But they found a television naturalist expert to give his opinion on why this dolphin specifically continues to keep attacking humans. And he said the dolphin is sexually aggressive and loved up is the phrase he used. He said that this is a dolphin who, for whatever reason, maybe isn't having success with other female dolphins or whatever dolphins in the world, has turned his eye toward humans. And this comes out as some sort of an attack. If you're in the water, attack you very much don't want to be a part of, I guess. They had to call in an expert as well with one of the harbors in the area to go ahead and capture the animal because it just wouldn't stop doing the things it was doing. And I don't know if a dating profile or something would have helped out, but I just thought it was so intriguing to see the headline that the dolphin is not attacking out of hate. It's attacking out of love. I feel like that is about as 2021 as we get here in all of these things that we see here in the news. Also, there was a woman that was kicked off a Spirit flight. She was smoking and she slurred words. She said that she was having a long day. At least 50,000 people viewed this on TikTok within the first few hours of it being up. I don't know if the reasons why include the fact that it was a Spirit airline flight, that the woman was from Florida, and that she was heavily intoxicated. But the thing that caught most people's eye is when you go to the back of the plane and just light up a cigarette, you're being about as bold as anyone can be. That person said that, again, she was having a tough whatever 24 hours. She just needed a little smoke break, and everybody should just go about their day. I've never seen that on a flight. If I did see that, if I saw someone turn around and just light up, I would partly probably be like, well, good for you. I mean, I wouldn't want it to occur. I'd want that person to get in trouble. But there is a certain amount of boldness you have to do these, or just, I guess, be totally hammered, which she also appeared to be. She did get mad when people tried to yell at her, screaming all kinds of profanities that I guess make sense. And then when finally being asked why she was doing what she was doing, as I said, she gave the excuse that it's just been a day and she needed a little break. I actually also saw this story, just shifting gears one more time kind of quickly here. U.S. parks are going to install selfie stations into the areas. They're going to be scenic views of the park, and the desire is to prevent people from hurting and or killing themselves at these parks by taking selfies that are dangerous. And this is something that has been occurring in our society. People take these photos, and tragically sometimes people actually fall off of large cliffs and die. And so I don't know why it strikes me as sad or why it strikes me as a sign of our times that the national parks had to find a way to put a selfie station into you actually had to build into nature this area in which people could go and take a photo and then advertise for it so that they don't try to have it anywhere else. And I think maybe it's just a legal thing. I wonder if the parks want to do everything they can to supply a destination, a position for people to take their photos so that they can't be held accountable when someone decides to take a photo, hanging off of a cliff that they shouldn't be hanging off of just to get some social media likes. But this is a real story. I think Iowa is one of the first places that is going to be doing this. They actually described the stations as nice, sturdy cedar stations, which is good. And obviously, of course, if they're safe, that's even better. They've installed the stations at select locations around the state so that you and your friends can discover new favorite spots and capture your memories with some amazing scenic backgrounds. That is actually Minnesota talking about that as well. And this is also just to keep you safe. We weren't a society all that long ago that struggled with the idea of something is too dangerous, so I shouldn't do. Well, okay, maybe not for the sake of a photo did we struggle with the concept that this is too dangerous, I shouldn't do this anywhere near as much as we do now, and certainly not, I think, in the public parks. I got to take a break. A lot more coming up. Greg Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. Very deserved vacation on probably a lot of very fun non-news related things happening. We're covering the news, though, here. Jen Psaki talked about how Biden's not mad. Actually, one of the reporters asked her just the other day during the speech that Biden gave, he seemed kind of mad. Is he mad, and who's he mad at? I love that question. Here we go.
We have asked and talked a little bit about the president's mood over the last few days, or his sense of all of this. A few of us observed he seemed angry at the beginning of the speech today. Who's he mad at?
I would say...
I love the non-answer we're about to get from Jen Psaki here, but I just love that question. In all honesty, I'm just here today to ask one question to you, White House correspondent. I just would like to know, White House press secretary, who's Joe Biden mad at? Is he mad at anybody right now? We should do that every day for every politician. That should be the first question every day. Before we get into any of the topics at hand, I'm just curious, who is this person mad at, and what can we believe or not believe about what they're going to say? But here's the non-answer.
I would say I'll give you a different assessment of what I saw, which is that he gave a forceful assessment, laid out a forceful case to the American people as to why it was time to wind down a 20-year war that has led to the loss of thousands of lives.
I have to be honest, if I ever got in a screaming argument with anyone, and it's not usually screaming with my wife, it's usually much less than that because I'll be hit almost immediately if I get too crazy. But I had this defense lined up. If I had Jen Psaki there to jump in and be like, it's not angry, it's not mad, that's forceful.
I'll give you a different assessment of what I saw, which is that he gave a forceful assessment.
Okay, if you just used that phrase right there, I'll give you a different assessment of what I saw. He used a forceful assessment. Then I think you could get out of a lot of angry, yelling things that you did in life. Jen Psaki was also asked about the agreement with the Taliban. I think that is interesting.
Can you clarify whether the United States has an agreement with the Taliban to allow more Americans and other Afghans to leave the country?
Well, I will say, Jeff, that it is not just our expectation, but also the expectation of 100 countries around the world, the UN Security Council and others, that the Taliban will abide by what they committed to last Friday, which is the ability of people to leave Afghanistan should they choose to leave. There do need to be ongoing diplomatic negotiations or discussions, I should say. That's a part of what the Secretary of State and his team will be leading.
Right. That's it. So they're going to behave now, of course. That's what we're meant to believe or have to believe because we have no other option. All right, shifting gears. I played this audio the other day. This guy was being described as a wacky guy who went up to an MSNBC reporter reporting on Hurricane Ida and decided to just start screaming and yelling at him. We have some of that audio.
Craig, I'm going to toss it back to you because we have a person who needs a little help right now.
Yeah. Hey.
And I do like the hey version of that. Well, this dude has an arrest warrant now. He is wanted for several things, apparently. The Gulfport Police Department released a statement naming the suspect and saying that he is wanted for 1 count of violating an emergency curfew, 1 count of disturbing the peace, and 2 counts of simple assault. He may also be violating the terms of a probation in Ohio. The police department there said that they know at least 1 condition that is being violated currently. So the guy might be wanted for traveling. He might be wanted for the things that he did. This guy might get in a tremendous amount of legal trouble. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying that how dumb do you have to be someone that's in violation of your parole and run up and scream to a television anchor in front of, I guess, whoever is watching that station? Like, how stupid is every decision that this individual made? His name is Benjamin, by the way. To go ahead, Benjamin Eugene Dagley, if you need the whole thing. If he were in violation of all these things, he just was begging to go back into jail. And I guess they're all still trying to figure out for sure. I can't say with full certainty, although it seems that the man has been identified by the police. But I'll just be double safe there and say that they're still alleged as far as the accusations right now. I just don't get it. Ann Coulter praised President Biden on Twitter, on social media. This was interesting. Ann Coulter said, "Thank you, President Biden, for keeping a promise Trump made, but then abandoned when he got into office. Trump repeatedly demanded that this is all Ann Coulter speaking, or at least tweeting, we bring our soldiers home, but only President Biden had the cojones to do it. Here we are. Here are a few of Trump's masterful tweets." And she shared some tweets. Ann Coulter, not a voice that I expected all the time to even be that out there in the world now, but certainly out there like this. And I don't think that the way in which this was done, I think that a lot of people would argue, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, that everyone wanted to leave. There's no one in the United States that, there's not any experts in the United States that thought it was a great idea to have to stay there forever. A lot of people, and just the American people too, supported very much the end of that war. But the way it ends is important. It's actually, this is a very lower stakes comparison to make, but I'm going to go ahead and make it. It's like any favorite TV show or movie or anything you have, a book. If it ends badly, you have a different perception of what you just witnessed, what you just occurred. If it ends poorly, now this is a much higher stakes war, lives are at stake kind of version of this. It can't end badly. You can't just be like, it'll be fine. As long as it's over, it's over. No. And so to say that the president did a good job, as he's been saying, or to support him for having the what she said, the strength is the word I'm going to use now, to remove our forces from the war. If you do it this bad, that matters, and it matters to the American people as well. And then as we assess the situation on the ground, if the only solution, because the Afghan military we know is not going to do what we're asking them to do without our support, without our help, then you have to continue to stay, because I think what we're going to get very quickly is an Afghanistan we very much tried to go fight 20 years ago, an Afghanistan that harbors terrorists that want to do harm to our country on our soil. I think that is what is coming, and of course that is the biggest obstacle in all that. All right, shifting gears again, 64%, just totally shifting, need something, palate cleanser, please. 64% of Americans enjoy exploring every aisle of a grocery store. This is something that I thought was going to be way less people. 2,000 people were asked about it, and I guess a higher amount than 2% emerged. My wife is one of these people. Every aisle of the store needs to be checked every time, even if we have a list of items, which we always have a list of things. We have to go through, and maybe we'll find a sale. People who do this spend about $50 more in unintended purchases just walking through and finding things. And if my wife brings me, and I wind up being hungry, which I almost always am at the grocery store, we're definitely buying $50 in extra things if I have to go through all the aisles. I just thought it was so interesting. 78% of people have done the same thing as far as left the grocery store with more things than they intended to buy just in general. But if you're a person who goes through every aisle, those prices are going to stack up very, very quickly. One last thing, actually, before we take a break. The go-to lawyer for the Capitol riot defendants has apparently disappeared, according to the New York Times. The mysterious disappearance of lawyer John Pierce began last week. Prosecutors say that when he missed a hearing, someone, I guess, on his team had used the excuse that he got coronavirus and he was being treated for it. Then they used an excuse in another case that he actually did not get coronavirus, but that he had a car accident and he was being treated for that. He was hospitalized. Then there were some claims that he had dehydration and exhaustion issues, and he was hospitalized for that. And when you find out that all these different claims are being made, in legal cases, you then wonder what's actually going on. And the reality is, apparently, we don't know. And this is as of yesterday, according to the New York Times. He is just gone. Someone who took on several cases, 17 Capitol riot cases, is just bounced. And I don't know if that's because this lawyer never intended to fight these cases. They just wanted the high-profile recognition that it would gain that person to be, defending them, or if this person ran because of safety issues. If they were actually being threatened, or if something is going on behind the scenes that is not entirely reported here, but if maybe, and I imagine this would be the case, someone high-profile defending these people might be attacked by people who believe different political things. And so for whatever reason, just a quick report on it, the person, the individual, the lawyer that was interested in defending so many of these people is now just gone. We'll take a break. A lot more. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Irreverence? Yeah. So what? It's The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. Much-deserved vacation for Chad Benson. I want to talk about quite a few things, though, including this story. MLB Network has banned a couple of their hosts. That would be John Smoltz and Al Leiter from their studios after they refused to get the COVID vaccine. Both of them, of course, are Hall of Famers. The network reportedly issued a mandate earlier this year that all employees receive the vaccine. When Smoltz and Leiter refused, according to the New York Post, they were asked to continue contributing remotely, despite not being allowed in their studios. Smoltz is still scheduled to provide game analysis for a division series on MLB's network during the playoffs. It's not clear whether that will be done remotely or in a stadium booth next to the guys. I mean, that would be weird. If you actually do it in a booth next to the booth with the other members of the team, and you're just sitting there in the quarantine booth or whatever you're going to call it, I think that makes less sense than just asking the 54-year-old Smoltz to do it from home. But that is the situation they're in right now. In March, Leiter joined former Yankee CeCe Sabathia, and then New York Governor Andrew Cuomo for a COVID briefing to announce to fans that they would be allowed to attend Mets and Yankee games. That would be Al Leiter, who now is also unvaccinated, but at the time was in support of the fact that fans, as he should be, should go into the stand. I don't know how we continue to navigate the challenge that is the people who choose to get vaccinated and those who choose not to, because it's multifaceted. But some of these demonstrations of the way in which it's going to occur are awkward at the very least. And again, the idea to potentially have him sitting in his own booth is just a terrible, terrible, awful concept that I really, really, truly hope does not happen. All right, let's get to some good news. I want to play some good news audio for you because I'm just in need of good news. And I got two of them. The good news segments all of a sudden on the Chad Benson Show. A World War II vet got to meet a grown version of then 9 when she first started writing him letters 12 years ago. The World War II vet obviously cares very much about the little girl that had been writing him letters of support. They met. Social media went wild for it. It was a sweetheart of a meeting. And here's some of the audio with that.
So here she is.
You're not the girl. Don't make me cry, please. This isn't the girl, is it?
Yes.
Honest to God.
They're hugging. They're meeting for the first time. Obviously, I assume that no one's asking any questions about vaccines and whatnot. But they're just getting to know each other in person for the first time after 12 years of letters to a little girl that just wanted to support someone who fought in World War II. Other good feel-good story, also World War II related. A person at a Goodwill in Tennessee realized that something was donated by mistake because it contained letters from a World War II veteran.
When I got it, I noticed it was heavy, so I picked it up, opened it, seen some letters in it, took the first one out, read it, and I was like, this is a mistaken donation.
I said, do you realize when these were written? And they were like, well, no. Like, what are you talking about? And I said, these are dated 1944 in Germany.
We didn't really know these letters existed. To have someone find them and return them, it was amazing.
There you go. 2 feel-good stories, 2 people doing the right thing. For whatever reason, I needed the palate cleanser that was that. They didn't even know about the letters, which is incredible in that story. And now they have probably one of the most precious family keepsakes that they'd ever have. And just because a person at Goodwill's like, this is wrong, this shouldn't happen, and not like most of those stories end with, it's a donation, we won't care about it. In other news, I saw this story asking you if you nickname your vehicle. It actually looked at the most popular vehicle nicknames in the UK. The number 1 name on the list, Betsy, is kind of a cool name for a car. Number 2, George. Number 3, the only one I got behind on this whole list, The Beast, is an interesting name for a car. Although you couldn't just name any car Beast. If you had, a Toyota Corolla, for example, I don't think you can call that The Beast. I feel like people will make fun of you. Several other names on the list include Bessie, Betty, Bertha, Bertie. I don't know if in the UK they just can't think of names that don't start with B, and that's how you name your car. But I do wonder, and maybe you can tell us on social media, Facebook.com/The Chad Benson Show, Twitter, Chad Benson Show, all over the place, if you have a nickname for your car and what it is. I do have nicknames for my car. We have 2 vehicles. The first car we call Grandpa, which is something my wife named the car because it's a 1996 Jeep that I just love. But for whatever reason, it's not exactly, it's not acting the same way as a younger vehicle. It has some issues now. It has some things you find that you might get as you age. And then the other car is called Baby Rhino because it has a color of a rhino and it's a much newer car. So I don't know. And I've always named cars. I've liked to, I think that adds something to it if it's something that, obviously you care about a little more. But tell us on social media, do you have a nickname for your car? And if so, what is it? And if you're in the UK, I imagine it just starts with a B. Aston Martin has revealed a $3.5 million full-sized operational James Bond vehicle that they're calling a toy car because it's not road safe and it's not road legal. You're not allowed to go on the street on this vehicle. $3.5 million, though. It recreates several of the things that you'd expect in a James Bond Aston Martin. It is equipped with a working smokescreen, deployable bulletproof shield, revolving number plates, and a simulated reciprocating machine gun that I guess doesn't fire any bullets, but it will go out and spin around for you. All of these things in a $3.5 million Aston Martin that you're not allowed to drive anywhere ever, but that you could own and you could put in your home or put in your garage as a toy car. I don't have $3.5 million sitting around, but this is the coolest thing I've ever read about. There's only going to be 25 of them hand-built, so they're going to be a collector's item, obviously. But this is something that if somebody had one of these, and I guess I'm showing my nerddom, I would be so entertained, and I would probably love to drive it around. However, do that at your own risk because you're likely to get in quite a bit of trouble if you do that. So good luck to you for sure. This is Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. If anybody has an Aston Martin lying around, feel free to send us a photo of it.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad on a much-deserved vacation. He will be back next week. Louisiana residents are still reeling from flooding and damage caused by Hurricane Ida. Their challenges involve finding food, gas, water, energy. Hundreds of thousands of people are without power, without water. A lot of challenges in getting immediate relief. The city of New Orleans seems to be faring a little bit better in those relief efforts than some of the other places within the state, of course, because of certain abilities and certain infrastructure that might exist more there. Still, though, incredibly challenging. People are being told that they probably should not be returning to the state or the city, and they should remain away until things get better. I think that some hope is out there that power and some of those things might start to return to areas of the city and areas of the state as soon as tomorrow or as soon as even today. For some of those efforts going on, and the National Guard has been deployed. So just an update on what's going on as far as New Orleans is concerned, as far as Louisiana is concerned, and the effects of Hurricane Ida. It is still a tremendously challenging situation. Not having access to food and water or electricity is about as challenging as it gets, if not just the damage that occurred there. I also saw in the news, and this is an Axios report, that a lot of people are turning to homeschooling after nearly twice as many people reported doing this because of the pandemic. Parents have lost faith in traditional schools. That is one of the reasons, not just safety of their kids. Others fear exposing their children to the coronavirus. A broad exodus could further weaken America's struggle with public education systems. According to Axios, 2.6 million kids have switched from traditional school to homeschooling. 2.6 million. The total number of household kids sits at around 5 million homeschooled kids, According to the census data, more than 11% of U.S. households are now choosing to do homeschooling. I do understand, I guess, as best I can as I have this conversation, the desire for either of those two reasons to contemplate having your kid at home instead of sending your kid to school, whether it's that you don't trust the school system to teach that education valuably, if it's CRT, if it's a bunch of different things that you worry about what your child is learning in school, or the opposite, if you're a person that's afraid of illness for whatever reason. I can understand as a parent being afraid of that, whether or not I think that makes sense. I will say this, though, as far as homeschooling versus other forms of education, public education, in person, around other kids, versions of education, there's no scenario outside of a retired teacher who chooses to educate their children at home in which you're going to do better than school. And honestly, it's just the totality of that experience, right? It's not necessarily just the things you would provide from an educational standpoint. It's the things you cannot provide that a school system could provide as far as sports. And you can try to do that a certain way. It's as far as just the ability to interact. This is why we push so heavily for remote learning to stop. A lot of people fight the idea that remote learning is a solution to some of the problems we've faced over the last year and a half, because it's just not the same. And the things that you're losing in the world of socializing or whatnot for kids, or just mental health even, we've seen a decline in a bunch of reports and conversations about the way in which there's a struggle there. And so to turn your attention to, and then actually not totally commit to it, because that's the other thing I believe about a lot of the homeschooling decisions that are made, is that if you're not an experienced teacher and person and educator, then you might try to do your best, but you might not fully commit to having that be the same curriculum. I do know a person, family friend, that believes in a unique kind of educating of their children. They call it unschooling, or something in which the kids kind of dictate at a certain age what things they want to learn. And I'm going to say that there's some science, some information into it, but it's a flawed concept. There's some aspects to it that, depending on the age of your kid and what they find interesting, that are probably not going to be as valuable as sending them to school with a more diverse amount of things being taught. And that's just one example of the way in which things could be done differently. And hey, it is your choice. They are your children. Do whatever you want. But I do see this uptick in homeschooling that is so significant at this time as potentially harmful as far as the education. And I'm not saying everybody's the same. I'm saying some people are going to do this very differently than others. but it's just intriguing to me to see how significant the rise is, and maybe how much so many of us in our society now just assume that, remote learning or whatever it is, or the lack of socializing isn't as impactful as it is. I very much believe that is a huge part of what you gain by going physically to school every single day. It's not just the things that you're taught in the classroom. It's the things that you learn from the other people you're interacting with. And I don't think there's any way to mimic that specifically. I also saw this story. This is according to the AP News. It's out of Michigan. They actually tell the story of one woman, 67 years old, who lives in Detroit. Her name is Valerie Rupert. She decided to buy a gun, and she wants to learn how to use the gun for the first time in her life as a grandmother because she's afraid. She's afraid of the uptick in violence in her community. She's a black woman, and I guess according to the AP and according to some experts in the world of these kind of things, gun advocates and industry experts, black women are turning to gun ownership more than what we've seen. It's an increasing segment of those who are purchasing guns. What is so intriguing, of course, about just that, the truth in that statement, is that a lot of these conversations in the political space, a lot of the conversations about defund the police or do this or do that, are designed to find ways to better protect minority communities. Correct? That's the argument. If you're someone who goes anywhere on television, if you're a politician, if you're if you're anybody, and you say that the police are not good, the police are bad, or the police need to be defunded, if you have any of those thoughts, essentially what you're trying to do is help minority communities because of your belief that cops are detrimental to those communities. I don't believe that necessarily. I believe that there are examples where that is true. I certainly believe the conversation and the crime that Derek Chauvin committed is a valuable one for our society, and the death of George Floyd was a valuable moment for a lot of people. I absolutely agree with that concept, but overall, I would definitely defend that a vast majority of people who serve and protect their society are doing it correctly. But isn't this an interesting, cause and effect scenario to take place where because of these pushes, because of these things happening in some of our biggest cities, and whether it's defunding or it's just public sentiment, public treatment of police officers, you see a lot of cops in Chicago retiring right now. There's a lot. Some of them are retiring without, the benefits they would have of working just a little bit longer because they're deciding that it's just not worth it. It's not worth it to report to work every day with the goal being to serve and protect people who kind of treat you like they hate you. A lot of people, the public sentiment, you're more comfortable right now in places like social media saying something negative about the police than something positive because of the amount of people that'll attack you on social media, which is crazy. But I believe that to be true. And so if you point to this story, if you're having a conversation with someone that believes in certain things about how, black women, minority women in places like Detroit are choosing to buy guns because they do not feel safe in their communities, then the simple follow-up, the simple second question is whatever is going on in those big cities working? Is the end goal that actually is supposed to be the biggest focus of any of these conversations, is the solution actually helping, or is the projected solution, the attempted solution, whatever it is, actually doing more harm than good? I would argue doing more harm than good if you have to protect yourself in that way. And I'm not trying to say that gun ownership is bad at all. That I don't want that to be the takeaway from this conversation because people add their own things to it. I just think that if you're a 67-year-old grandmother who's never owned a gun before and feels that it's your only way to protect yourself now to go learn how to use one, then certainly there's something within the system that needs to be looked at again. One other story, a quick story, a story that is a palate cleanser because I need one again. There is a town in Switzerland that gives anybody that reaches 100 years old 100 bottles of wine. This is a real thing. They've been doing this for a while in the city, and they think that it's obviously pretty nice as far as a celebration of anyone that reaches the 100-year mark. They actually used to provide two options. So you could either get 100 bottles of wine or you could get a fancy chair. And I'm not making that up. Those appear to be the only two options. Here, you get 100 bottles of this or you get a very fancy chair. No one took the chair for obvious reasons. Everyone was like, no, I'm going to go ahead and go with the alcoholic beverages, the whole 100 of them, and I'm going to feel great about it. I love that story so much that they eventually discontinued in 2015 even offering the chair. Now it's just wine or no wine if you're 100 years old. And there is a person coming up. Her name is Marie Antoinette, which is pretty cool as far as the name goes. She will turn 100 in November, and she apparently, according to local news, tremendously excited about her free 100 bottles of wine. I know that the Biden administration likes to spend money on stuff. I know that the government likes to throw money around. This is one thing that I would not be entirely against. If anybody reaches 100 years old and we gift them a crap ton of alcoholic beverages, I'm not totally against that kind of government spending. I know I'm being crazy. I'm going out on a limb by saying it, but I do think it's an interesting idea. A quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Thrilled to have you with us. A lot of things to talk about here, including a couple stories involving Apple. The first one, the simple Apple logo of the tech giant is the most memorable logo, according to consumers. 2,000 adults were asked this question. A lot of different big-name brands popped in, but Apple was the clear, far-away winner for just the simple logo of an apple. So I don't know if that is yet again demonstrating that we should probably just all name our companies in the near future after fruit, and then just have the logo be the fruit. But that and several other reasons, obviously, the success of the company. Also, this story, though, from Yahoo News, Apple II has started publishing employees' toxic workplace stories. A group of current and former Apple workers recently banded together and called for colleagues to share stories of discrimination, harassment, and retaliation that they've experienced at the company. As of just a few days ago, the group called themselves Apple II and said that they had collected 500 such stories. Now it has started publishing them on its own official website. And some of the people involved, some of the people who've stepped forward have said that this is, going to be very, very eye-opening. 2 of the first 5 are actually about sexual harassment, one of which involves a male boss using his position of power over a female employee. These are things that will continue. Apple II is now going to be a hashtag, a phrase, a thing out there in the world. I don't want to completely jump to conclusion. If you got 500 stories, some of them are probably going to be valuable enough for us to listen, hear them, and accept some toxic workplace version of that being true. I do imagine, though, that if you get to a certain number of stories, much like any other movement we've seen, that not all wind up feeling exactly the same, that not all feel like they're in the same bucket. They feel like they're as valuable, as important as far as conversations or maybe lawsuits go. And the fact that these will all be just published together and put out there by former and current Apple employees, tremendously interesting. I don't know what Apple will do in response to this, what they can do in response to this. But in some of the interviews, some of the creators of this product have said that, like the company needs to be held accountable because they're not holding themselves accountable. People want to feel heard, and they don't feel heard by Apple. So we got to do it this way. News first broke of the Apple II movement after Apple said in a statement that we take all concerns seriously and we thoroughly investigate whenever a concern is raised. And out of respect for the privacy of individuals involved, we don't discuss those specific employee matters. And of course, they don't. I am going to be intrigued. I am going to watch this, as I said, and as I laugh about certain versions of just the Apple II movement being out there, there may be several, and I haven't heard the first few stories, but several valuable stories that come from this, as well as some that probably don't deserve to be published. I want to revisit something I talked about earlier. The guy at Dairy Queen in Canada who wanted to protest his required. They were trying to get him to put a mask on. He didn't want to do it, and he decided to start urinating all over the place. For some reason, there is some viral audio. It's just of people reacting to that, and they're just saying, "Whoa, my God!" But I will play it because I imagine this is how all of us would feel if we saw this occur in front of us.
It's not a PC policy. PC policy says you have to observe exemptions.
I'm not laughing because I'm happy about what happened. I'm laughing because this makes sense as far as the reaction goes. If you were having this argument, if you're the manager and you're trying to go the road of, it wasn't an easy decision for us, but we're going to have to ask you to put a mask on, and you see a guy, do what he needs to do to start to pee and then to start peeing, I think this is all that happens. And I have said that I would probably just quit this job, especially if I was the employee asked to clean up. I would just be like, nope, I quit. I am done working at this Dairy Queen. I'll see you later.
It's not a BC policy. BC policy says you have to observe exemptions.
I don't know why. It entertains me at least a little bit, but I would be that upset, by the way. I would probably be scarred. I would be, a lot of things. And they're still looking for the guy. The guy is still on the run. He's out there in the world and hopefully not, protesting and peeing on other things. I don't know. I can't say for sure until we apprehend the man. I saw this study. I thought it was interesting and maybe something valuable to tell Joe Biden. Mumbling makes men more attractive. A new study found women find men attractive if they mumble. Apparently, they actually played audio of several different individuals for both men and women, and then they asked them to rate without being able to see any of the people who was likely to be the most attractive. Out of these 42 different recorded speaking individuals, men who mumbled a lot were rated more highly in attractiveness or likelihood of being attractive than those who spoke clearly. The exact opposite was true for women. If a man heard a woman speak clearly as opposed to mumble, he thought that she was likely to be more attractive for sure. And both numbers were pretty significant, which was surprising. But apparently, so again, this I guess is good news. I don't think it said anything about your ability to trust or believe in or think of a person as a leader. It was solely just their attractiveness. And I don't know what that is too, by the way. Like why women would find mumbling attractive and why men would not. I don't know if it's because if you mumble, someone has to lean in to pay more attention to you. And by leaning in to pay more attention, maybe that somehow comes off as a thing. But that's a real story out there in the world that for whatever reason, women and men totally different as far as that is concerned. And I would agree as a guy that whenever you meet a person who speaks very, very clearly, a person who handles himself, guy or girl, well, I think different things about that person. I don't always think attractiveness per se, but there's a bunch of different aspects that you attribute to someone who has very good communication ability that didn't come out the way I wanted to, who is very clearly and very articulately capable of handling themselves. That, to me, is a unique skill that's tremendously valuable, but maybe that's why I also work in radio. I'm not sure if that's what it is, and I don't know that I would ever determine that a clearly spoken woman is somehow more attractive than a woman who's not speaking clearly. I don't know if that's something that would hit me that way for whatever reason. But yet, there we go. All right, I got to take a break. A lot more coming up. This is Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Don't worry, I'll talk about the latest going-ons as far as what we're saying about Afghanistan in a second. But first, just a quick story. 82% of us plan to celebrate Halloween this year. I am very happy to see the number is that significant. The first big Halloween survey of the year found that a significant amount of Americans think that it's time to get back to trick-or-treating. Put the costume on, do the whole thing. 52% of us eat the whole piece of candy corn if we're giving it at once. I love that. Just piece of information. 31% of us will bite and eat carrot corn more slowly. And 17% start with a specific side of the candy corn. Just other information that you might need to know in the world of Halloween. All right, I will get to Afghanistan. I just wanted that first for several reasons. Okay, let's do this. First, I think that it's important to continue to play the audio from the other day of Biden saying that we were prepared for what occurred, and then also saying that no one predicted what occurred. This is a 1-minute clip It's fairly boring. We're going to try to get through all of it. I'm probably going to react during. But within 1 minute of speaking, in a pre-written statement that he took no questions after, he doesn't seem to be aware of the fact that he's making no sense as far as taking both stances. Here we go. Let's just play it.
In April, I made a decision to end this war. As part of that decision, we set the date of August 31st for American troops to withdraw.
And what he should be saying, actually, I should do some filler-ins of the audio as we go here. And we didn't care what occurred. We were getting out by the 31st, no matter what, people.
The assumption was that more than 300,000 Afghan national security forces that we had trained over the past 2 decades and equipped would be a strong adversary in their civil wars with the Taliban.
Do not read the transcript from the phone call I made in July to the president of the Afghanistan country, the Afghanistan government that we were hoping would hold with that military, because I expressed a very different belief, a belief that the Taliban was winning the fight against this military and that you needed to go ahead and lie as a political leader for that country in order to get them to stop winning, or at least, I don't know, the greater public to believe that they were not winning when they obviously were. So again, even though I just told you that the belief was one thing, don't go back and read any of my transcripts from July.
That assumption that the Afghan government would be able to hold on for a period of time beyond military drawdown turned out not to be accurate.
We thought we'd at least get our people out in time. That was not accurate, is the way you could have phrased that, Mr. President.
But I still instructed our national security team to prepare for every eventuality, even that one.
This is the most interesting part of the thing he said so early on. So there's 2 ways to take that. The first way is to say no, that you definitely didn't prepare for it because the chaos that was the leaving of Afghanistan demonstrates that there was no plan in place, whatever. The even worse scenario for the president is to believe him, is to understand what he said and think that it is accurate somehow, and that the best course of action was to do what we did, including provide our equipment, provide all of our weapons to the enemy and not dispose. Why did we not dispose of those weapons at the very least? And I know that someone might make the argument that, well, if the Army was going to stay, we had to obviously leave the weapons for them. That makes absolutely no sense to me if the on-the-ground version of this is a very, very simple and obvious demonstration that was not working. And again, you just got to go back to his call to the president at the time, who wound up fleeing the country less than a month after this phone call, that shows us all that the president knew very well that the Taliban was succeeding. And this is back in July, and did not seem to cared more about the public message, the way in which you shape that to your people, which obviously suggests that he probably can't be trusted anytime he speaks to us as well. But here, there's a little bit more from it.
And that's what we did. So we were ready when the Afghan security forces, after 2 decades of fighting for their country and losing thousands of their own, did not hold on as long as anyone expected.
Did not hold on as long as anyone's expected. So we expected this, but also
did not hold on as long as anyone expected.
Okay. So we planned for it, but they didn't hold on like we expected them to. I don't understand. Jen Psaki was asked if the Taliban agreement is in place to help those who are still stuck get out as far as American citizens go, green card holders, all those kinds of things.
Can you clarify whether the United States has an agreement with the Taliban to allow more Americans and other Afghans to leave the country?
Well, I will say, Jeff, that it is not just our expectation, but also the expectation of 100 countries around the world, the UN Security Council and others, that the Taliban will abide by what they committed to last Friday, which is the ability of people to leave Afghanistan should they choose to leave. There do need to be ongoing diplomatic negotiations, or discussions, I should say. That's a part of what the Secretary of State and his team will be leading.
They'll be leading our work with the Taliban to make sure that we continue to get our people out. But again, if you check with Biden, this was all planned for. We knew that all this was going to occur, and this is the best we could do. I honestly think, and many people will probably start to feel this way, that we should feel worse if he's telling the truth than if he's lying. Lying is actually much better for us. Here is Representative Mike Gallagher to sum it up fairly succinctly on just how much of a failure this whole thing was.
Let's start with the hard and obvious truth. The President of the United States is lying. He called this an extraordinary success, but 12 Marines and 1 sailor dead that did not need to die is not a success. Hundreds of Americans left behind. Thousands more of our Afghan allies effectively condemned to death under the Taliban is not a success. Billions of dollars worth of U.S. military equipment left in the hands of fundamentalist terrorists is not a success.
Yeah, I got to think that I agree there. And honestly, as we move forward and we continue to rehab this conversation, something new is kind of going to pop into my brain. The last president, former President Trump, was accused all the time of being arrogant. He was accused of his personality getting in the way of his leadership time and time again. Our current president seems to be incapable of admitting that he failed to plan this exit correctly, and I think that's arrogance. Because as I said, if this was a planned version of this exit, it is tremendously worse than we misjudged some things. To just say it that way, to not continue to add the explanation that we were prepared for something we evidently weren't prepared for, feels to me to be arrogance at the highest of levels. And so I don't know why the criticism's not the same this time around. Justin Bieber apparently has a billboard out there in the world that is only half him and then half the legs of Kim Kardashian. I will put this up on social media. I'm tremendously amused by this. It's starting to go viral online. It is the top half, Justin Bieber. The bottom half is the stems of one Kim Kardashian. People don't know why or how this happened. They don't know if this is somehow a purposeful thing or if somebody got bored halfway through a major billboard renovation and just said, it'll be fine. It looks the same. But I'll put it up on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Greg Collins Show, so you can see it some other places. I know it's visual, and I know this is radio. But after everything I just said about the person in charge of our country, I needed yet another thing to make me at least laugh and enjoy the world that we're all in a little bit more. And this is definitely it. The half Bieber, half Kardashian billboard probably should just be a thing. We probably should use this for all. I think this is probably the next Apple campaign. I know they're innovative. I know this is a swing for the fences kind of move. I got to take a break. A lot more. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Chad will be back next week. I want to talk about what Don Lemon said. I don't know why I want to talk about it, but I do, because I think that this is a scary version of the conversation we're all having. I understand those that are vaccinated, that wear masks, and are angry to an extent at those who choose not to, because obviously people who get vaccinated, wear masks, believe in science, believe in the conversations that we're having as far as protection go, and they've chosen, that road as far as a solution. The people that are choosing not to, I don't need to really describe in great detail those opinions as well, but essentially they think they have the right to choose, and they've determined that it's not the course of action for them. And I agree with those people. And we've seen a lot of data saying that unvaccinated people are more likely to be hospitalized than the vaccinated, et cetera, et cetera. Don Lemon thinks that some harsh realities deserve to be at play here.
Sorry, I ate into the time there, but I had...
No, it's very important. You don't have to explain. You don't have to tell me. Listen, here's how I feel about that. If you're not going to get vaccinated, you don't want to social distance, you don't want to wear a mask, then maybe you don't want to go to the hospital when you get sick. I know that sounds harsh, but you're taking up the space for people who are doing things the right way. You and I both agree on this is going to be between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated moving forward in this country. And I just think if you don't want to play by any of those rules and then all of a sudden you end up in the hospital, I feel bad that but maybe you shouldn't go and take up the resources from someone else.
All right, let's go. Let's do it, Don. Let's do the slippery slope argument to your thought, to your idea. Where does that end? If you don't allow unvaccinated Americans, or if you suggest to unvaccinated Americans that they can't get mental or medical treatment when they need it, what else do we do? Who else do we blame for things they choose to do and say, all right, you're not allowed to go to the hospital if you get hurt doing this. Of course, drunk drivers is something we could talk about. If someone injures themselves and they were drinking, intoxicated, and driving, are they allowed to have medical treatments, according to you, Don Lemon? If someone is addicted to drugs and winds up overdosing because they chose to do it themselves, are they someone that it has the right? Let's say that you don't buckle your seatbelt. That's technically against the law. You've made a mistake, and now let's say you get hurt in a car accident because you just didn't buckle a seatbelt. Does that person not? It's crazy. It's ridiculous to say, and a lot of people have been saying it. Don Lemon is not alone. That your decision-making is what entitles you to medical care for any reason, not specific to the pandemic and not specific to the vaccine, but for any reason. The medical community, and I do feel badly for them. I do want to say that when I talk about this topic, that people who are slammed right now in hospitals getting several COVID cases, who obviously also would feel, not all medical professionals though, but a majority of them feel that a vaccine would be preventing a lot of this from happening. For those people, I feel bad that your job is hard. It's difficult. There is a viral video of a woman on TikTok crying after getting home from a shift as a nurse because she's saying she doesn't see the pandemic ever ending. I feel bad for people that are working in these fields. I'm not trying to disregard the challenge that exists there. But we don't offer our medical treatments to only those that we deem deserving and then define what deserving is. So it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It makes me fairly mad. I have to move on to other topics. There is this story that emerged out of Mississippi. Ahead of our Hurricane Ida, someone in Mississippi decided to actually chain a goat, leave a dog, and abandon a car at an empty bank. So the goat actually was tied up. The dog was not, and the car was just sitting there. But the police in the area said things are getting really unusual. We just found a goat, a dog, and a car. So if you're missing all three of those things, if you just hit the bingo trifecta in things that you abandoned, you can pick them up at the police station. I'm glad that the animals were saved. This is a fairly heartless person if they thought that the animals were going to be in danger, just leaving them there. But abandoning a car, too, strikes me as extra odd. That strikes me as though something definitely happened that shouldn't have happened. I hope more information exists on this. But just the viral nature of that headline, police find goat, dog, car at abandoned bank, is intriguing. I saw this story, too. This is out of the New York Post. I'm going to talk about stripping for a second, about strippers. And I know that's a interesting topic to hit on the old radio. But apparently this is what happened. When all those places closed down, and there's not really a way to work from home, if that's the world you're in. I guess anyway, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But a lot of them turned to one social media platform. A lot of women who are strippers, they turned to TikTok. And they didn't turn there to try to do their job online. They turned there they turned to that social media platform to just talk about their job and why they do it. Apparently, it's a whole sub thing on TikTok. It's called Strip Talk, and a bunch of exotic dancers go there to try to, quote unquote, change the stigma and the misconceptions that surround their business. And the article in the New York Post is saying that they did this because of the pandemic, because of the shutdown. They started to think about, another valuable, I guess, contribution to society. And they thought that re-educating people on that profession made sense. 4.3 million views have been watched on I guess I'm not totally surprised about that part, on parts of those hashtags that revolve around social media of strippers just talking about their profession to people online. All right, I'm going to move on. I don't want to weigh in any more on that story. A man fears apparently having snakes in his house. I don't know why I turned to this story next. Okay, we're just going to keep doing it. A man, his name is Mark Murphy, is afraid that there might be snakes in the walls of his home after he found a snake skin in an area of his house. He documented all of it on TikTok as well. The clip has also gone viral. Right now, he has not found any snakes inside of his home, but he doesn't know where the skin came from. That is terrifying. I will be honest. I'm not afraid of snakes as much as my wife is. My wife is so afraid of snakes that you can see one on TV and she recoils from it. But if you were to find just a random snake skin somewhere in your house or even within the walls of your home, I feel like you'd have a lot of questions. And it might just be one. It might be a bunch of them. I don't know how you get the exterminators out. to handle that issue. And I don't know if Samuel L. Jackson becomes involved with snakes in the walls, but I do think that it's a thing that certainly deserved to go viral, and I would be as afraid as this guy is of it. A lot of people commented that they would just move out of the house, that if you found this kind of thing in the walls of your home, you'd be like, I'm done. One other quick story, actually, by the way, too. Facebook apparently is removing a lot of political posts from everyone now. This is according to a couple different articles out there. They say that you're tired of political conversation, which may or may not be true, by the way. I think a lot of people probably are tired of a lot of the political things we talk about every single day. But because of that, the platform is just going to kind of shadow ban, is what it's called. When you lower the awareness, lower the sharing of anything that discusses politics at all. So good luck to people that talk about politics or people that are interested in political conversation still and going to social media to hear some of those things, because Facebook is just going to censor all of it, which totally makes sense. They're going to tell you they're doing it for your benefit. This is Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. Chad will be back next week. Much deserved vacation. I want to get right to it. Martha Raddatz listed off Joe Biden's many broken promises on the botched Afghanistan withdrawal. This audio is going viral on social media. It makes sense. And let's let Martha just sum up what occurred over the last month or so.
The evacuation occurred because the withdrawal they did not realize the Taliban would take over so quickly. They did not realize the Taliban would fall in 11 days, and that's why you ended up with this chaos. That's why you ended up with so many desperate people. Just on July 8th, the president was saying there's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of an embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. They were clinging to airplanes in those early days. He was touting the Afghan forces, saying, I trust the capacity of the Afghan military. The president said they were ready, they were prepared for this, but no one was prepared for 11 days for the Taliban to take over. The president also promising on July 8th that we can guarantee the safety of the interpreters. There are thousands of interpreters in Afghanistan right now who are desperate and frightened. And just about a month ago, he told our George Stephanopoulos that he would get all Americans out. They've gotten 90% of those out. And that 10% right now is scared and still does not know exactly how they're going to get out.
There you go. That would be a summary of the events that occurred and the things that were said. And honestly, anybody can feel as though this is political rhetoric to attack Biden so aggressively on everything that's occurred over the last month. But a lot of these are just things he did to himself, things that he said in interviews and conversations that he provided, he gave, and then they did not unfold at all. And I don't know that we've ever seen this truly exactly like this in the world of politics in such a short time frame, right? I mean, we've seen people say one thing and have another thing occur time and again. That's part of what politics is. But there's so many quotes, as just demonstrated by that quick 1-minute excerpt from Martha Raddatz, so many promises broken so quickly. And I think the most profound of all of them is the one that we're still talking about, which is the fact that there are still Americans that have some interest, if I'm quoting our president, but have interest in leaving that are not out of the country. We left people behind. We left dogs behind. We left all kinds of weapons and ammunition and things behind. We just left the interpreters, as she's saying, behind. And yet we planned all this. That is the other part of the narrative. It makes absolutely no sense. And I know that some people might tune this out to be like, it's too political. I don't know if I want to hear that. But this is a very easy conversation, hopefully, for most Americans when you actually reflect on the things our president said and the things he did. And as far as investigations and calls to can people, get people fired, and maybe even have some people impeached or removed from power, I think the conversation is deserved. I do think that the investigation makes sense. I am worried if we start playing impeach the president games back and forth after the experience from the Trump administration. But I'm not sure if that is something that will be an outcome that makes sense after more information is out there or not. I don't know who advised the president on what he decided to do and how many decisions he made against advice. Shifting gears, and I say that not on purpose, even though I'm about to talk about Adam Schiff. Kevin McCarthy and his phone records are a big point of interest for Democrats. This is something that seems awkward, to say the very least, to have all of your phone records turned over to other politicians who can then rifle through them to see things about the events on that specific day. The January 6th commission. McCarthy does feel that this is an obvious breach of his privacy. Schiff does not agree. Let's hear from Adam.
And I think that at the end of the day, we're determined that whoever was involved in this effort to prevent the peaceful transfer of power should not be able to hide behind their office. We want to develop all the facts. If people were not involved in trying to overturn the government, they shouldn't be concerned. But Kevin McCarthy clearly is, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is his boss, his master in Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, his master in Mar-a-Lago. That's the reason. It's all the big, bad evil that is Trump. And for that reason, we deserve all of your cell phone records. I feel like this might become impeachment number 2 in the world of a lot of politicians just doing this to each other. All right, if you want to go after me, I'm just going to invade your privacy. I'm going to find a way to say something or do something that goes after your rights in that world and scares you on what we could eventually publish. You know that even if they uncover things that have nothing to do with January 6th, that those things will just get leaked, that it'll just be a political game. Gaining his records, gaining his private communications to somehow take a shot at the politics or the politicians that you disagree with is the actual goal in all of that. Moving on, Oreo, the company behind Oreo, is being criticized for the way they're handling their social media account right now because they have about 1,000 workers who are on strike for the work conditions there. Oreo has been campaigning to have Apple create an emoji of Oreos. This is a real story. As Nabisco is ignoring some of the plights of some workers, specifically in Portland, Oregon, they are much more focused on getting their own Oreo emoji out there into the world, which is a very intriguing, interesting, and unique way to, I think, get more brand awareness. Not that Oreo really needs it, but an interesting challenge to say at this time when workers are asking for significant amounts of money from you, at least a small amount of them are, you're talking about this. It makes sense, though, right? Like, that's what social media is. My response to this article would be you'd want them to be talking about that on Twitter. You want them to be tweeting about how there's strikes and protests going on outside of their company. No company does that. No company on social media ever is like, hey, there's people outside. They're striking. They're upset with the work conditions. More info later. Also, Apple, how's it going on our emoji? I don't think that that's the solution that's going to happen, whether or not it's called for by some people. All right, moving on again. I really like this story. Bud Light has unveiled a few new flavors. They have a marshmallow hard seltzer, and they have a pumpkin spice hard seltzer. Now, the only reason I like this story is that I think they're going to be waiting at least a little bit longer before they debut these items to the public. I for whatever reason, get into these sort of fights with pumpkin spice, and I mean it sort of tongue-in-cheek, but I do get annoyed that pumpkin spice is something that a lot of people seem to think signifies a certain season. It's only available in the fall, and yet the fall happens earlier and earlier all the time. It is only September now. I guess it is kind of officially close to the time when pumpkin spice should be a thing. But I saw it weeks ago, even a month ago in some places, and I can't handle it. And I know that I'm probably not alone entirely on that. A lot of Americans actually think that pumpkin spice, the flavor, should just be available all the time. If it's so delicious, if it's so great, why does it have to signify the holiday? And I will say this, I get just as annoyed at all the other things that happen in the world of, say, a grocery store putting the Halloween decorations on sale too early. Home Depot sold out of some of their Halloween decorations online already. I just get annoyed. It's those little things that, for whatever reason, tick me off. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong, but I just don't get it. And also just the fact that, they're now going to put it into a hard seltzer means I have to deal with a lot more people buying another pumpkin spice thing. And isn't it? It's the most pervasive of flavorings. I think it's the one that's way too many places in way too many things. Maybe it's just its ubiquity is what I hate the most about it. I'm not sure, but something about me and pumpkin spice do not get along. One last question, and then I will take a break, actually. I want to ask you this, though. Apparently, there's a debate on social media. Is the left lane on a highway just for passing, or is it for driving fast? A new poll of 27,000 Americans said that it's both. It is for driving fast and for passing. 40% say it is for either one. 36% say it is used only for passing. And 13% say that it's mainly for people who want to drive fast and faster than the average flow of traffic. 2% chose none of the above. And to be honest, anytime I talk about a poll, anytime I talk about a conversation like this, I'm always most intrigued by the small percentage of people because I don't know what they think it's for then. If it's not for passing, if it's not for going fast, I don't know if they think it's a magical lane that does something that they don't, maybe they've never tried it. Maybe the 2% of people have never shifted over and they don't know what occurs when they're on the left lane. 9% had no opinion, by the way, which I also think is incredible because I would love to interview the people that are shut down in opinion positions now. They're just so afraid to put out an opinion on anything that if you ask them about a left lane on a highway, they're like, yeah, I don't know, man. I could see both sides of the argument because that's where we are. That 9% is probably overly woke, in my opinion. And then the 2% of people who have no idea what's going on are probably lost a majority of their lives. The rest of us, it's fine. By the way, the correct answer, it is both. The left lane is for driving faster than the flow of traffic, and it is for passing. However, of course, if you drive too fast, you're going to get pulled over and have a ticket. So that there's no rules in the left lane. I use it for both. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show, where we reach across the aisle and occasionally poke someone in the eye.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be here. I have two stories. Stories about relationships, I guess, in different ways. But one is a feel-good, a good job done. The other one is a terrible, terrible job done. Let's do the good job story first. This guy's name is Dantes Williams. He's 33 years old. He recently talked to Fox News about what he did. He got married. He got married to a woman that had two daughters that he described as people that really only had him in their life as a father figure for the last however many years that he's been dating his now wife. And so he came up with an idea. He wanted to propose in a different way at the wedding to his two daughters, propose himself as their father. He wanted to get on a knee, do the whole thing. It was an adoption proposal. The two girls are 9 and 8 years old, Abigail and Natalie. He kept the surprise from the entire family. He had asked some coworkers and some friends if they thought it was a good idea. They said yes. So he wrote additional vows for them. He tipped off the person that was officiating his wedding while not telling anybody else. So when the wedding is about to occur, he actually gets down on a knee and proposes to these two little girls who then accept him as their father before he then goes ahead and goes through the rest of the wedding and marries the love of his life. This story is beautiful. This story is incredible. The emotion of all of it is just great. He said that the two little girls were just so surprised by the gesture. One of them just like stood there kind of deer in headlights, but eyes lit up when they realized what was going on. And now they are a happy family. This is job well done in the world of dating, in the world of relationships from Dantes Williams, 33 years old. Congratulations to you and Michelle on your new wedding, on your new family, Abigail and Natalie, all together finally. Here is a job done incredibly poorly. This is the opposite. This guy is a motorcyclist in Florida. He was on a first date with a lady on a Saturday, and he decided that it'd be cool to show off to this woman by just flooring it. He is 22 years old. His name is Taylor Beverlier, I believe, and he was just flying everywhere that he was going with the date strapped to the back of the motorcycle with him. Eventually, this caused a police chase. Even though there was a police chase going on and everyone was traveling well over 100 miles an hour, Taylor did not stop. He just sped up. He kept doing everything he can to weave in and out of traffic. He ran several red lights. Eventually, police caught him and they asked him, "What the heck are you doing? You've got a person on this bike with you. Why are you doing this?" He said that he was trying to show off, to show the date how cool he was. He got arrested. That is a felony to flee the cops, among other things. He posted a $10,000 bond. His previous rap sheet includes convictions for cocaine possession, grand theft auto, and passing a counterfeit check. That is all according to the Smoking Gun. This is a job done very, very poorly. Two different worlds, two different men at different stages in their emotional and relationship lives, just going very, very different roads. I feel like this is when the two courses diverge. I don't know what it would be like to try to be the woman that was on a date with Taylor and just deal with him getting into a cop chase to impress you. I don't know if that actually works well. Ladies, let us know on social media. Tell us if someone that you were in a relationship had done that, would it impress you if they told you it was all for you? I saw this story. It's out of Canada, out of Vancouver. 1/3 of people suffer from a hatred of movement. It makes you very antsy if someone's a fidgety person. It's only 1/3 of people, which I found surprising. But apparently this research from the University of British Columbia looks into a lot of different things. The fidget spinner is the thing that's mentioned here and the thing that's pictured. But 4,100 people were studied, and the conclusion is that just about 1/3 are very sensitive to movement. Now, it reminds me of a lot of the studies where people talk about the sound of chewing and how annoying that can be to some, myself very much included in the second one. I don't know what it is, what we pick up on differently than others, what we perceive to be just like a noise or a movement or anything that we just can't deal with. But I definitely hate is a strong word, but yet I feel strong about it. Hate loud chewers. And I imagine that at least in this study, they demonstrated that 1/3 of people can't handle it. My wife, I feel like, is more the fidget person because I'm known to be a little bit of a fidgeter. I'm a leg shaker. That's a thing that I do when sitting sometimes, and I will be hit from time to time for that in the leg and told to stop. I feel like I've mentioned twice on this show now that my wife hits me. I don't know if that she's not very strong. She's very little, and they're not very impactful punches. So I just don't want anyone getting the wrong opinion. I'm surviving. I'm fine. I feel okay. Party poopers. Apparently, this is a study too. People who poop out at parties. I'm just so glad I said it that way. Are actually better at dealing with stress and depression than the rest of us. This is according to research from The Ohio State University. Shunning joyful moments actually gives you a better ability to navigate through those challenging times. This is one of the more interesting things I've seen in the world. I guess it makes sense, though, right? Like if someone can be real, can be honest, can be a Debbie Downer or whatever you want to call them in a moment where everybody else is having fun, they don't really seem to ever deny what's going on in their life. They don't seem to be a kind of person who ever, kind of just lets a bunch of stuff build up back there before dealing with whatever it is that's going on. So I guess I'm not surprised. I'm not shocked. Next time you come across a Debbie Downer, I guess there's a reason now for you to feel somewhat jealous of their ability to be so in touch with the emotions of the moment. I wonder if wherever they're being a party pooper might change your ability to be happy for them. If they're doing it at, say, your wedding, I imagine you don't really care if they were able to navigate the pandemic better than you. One last one, and then I got to get out of here. A new study out of New York said that women feel most confident in their body and in their skin at 32 years old. That is a new survey of 2,000 American women. Apparently 32 is the money year. I don't know exactly how the science of that falls, and I don't really care to know the science of how that falls, but I just think it's intriguing. And I wonder what that says to everybody who's not 32, which is a much bigger bucket than the people that are, to be told by a study, hey, you probably aren't happy in your skin, but it's because you're not the magic age, whether it's younger or older. But as soon as you get to 32, man, oh man, things are going to be pretty great. Although I guess just in general for navigating adulthood, your 20s are just a broken system. They're not going to go well. Your 30s probably make more sense, and I guess your early 30s can make the most sense of all, at least according to this one study. All right, This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show.